I'm Matt the Comedy Guy, and today we're going to explain the timeline of FNAF series. Two things I want you to stay in mind that you should do while explaining this timeline. One, do not go with theories that already have been confirmed to be debunked or confirmed by doing research whether or not they actually are true. If we don't know them. If you do, that's fine. You can actually figure out how they can be debunked by looking at evidence for those theories. And two, try to figure out, other things of mysteries rather than just unsolved questions. Because doing that while solving the questions will not give you a good timeline video. Both of these have several people not entirely succeed or not be as good at explaining a timeline as I have. Trust me, they tried, but they didn't realize it. Now, let's begin. This part one is an explanation of William Afton all the way until he becomes Springtrap. And what better way to start than his origins and how he went that far of becoming that monster that Henry described in the first place, how he became partners with Henry, Emily, and how their friendship torn apart became the reason why he stopped working for him and did matters in his own hands. You see what I mean by admittance. And what better place to start is with his origins. Now it's finally been explained what age William Afton is. And finally, by showing this, Google actually confirms that William Afton was born 1938 and that he had a brother. We just call this brother Joe Afton. That it might be born 2 years after him. So William Afton being born by 1938 by an unknown father and mother, an unnamed father and mother, and that his brother was born 2 years after, 1940. Let's just say his birthday is July 8th, and that his brother's is October 16th. So July 8th, 1938, William Afton is born by an unnamed father and mother. We don't know what his parents' names are. By his childhood, he has his brother born on October 16th, 1940. And that together as brothers, they had fun together as kids. They played together, even funnest of all, they would never be apart. Until one day in the year 1944, his parents got divorced. Reason why his parents got divorced is for unknown reasons, but this hurt both William Afton and his brother Joe. They couldn't handle it, so William Afton felt like he was alone, even though he had his brother by his side. His brother was the one who cheered him up by continue on having fun with him, but it couldn't work. Meanwhile, in another spot around the same country as him, there was someone who thought of being a genius inventor, and that was Henry Emily. He always dreamed of the idea of building machinery and robots. And one day he planned his first machine. This was a prototype for later on what would become of, you guessed it, the FNAF, the spring locks. While he was inventing his prototype, back into the other side, William Afton also thought of building the machines and building his first prototype. It wasn't interesting as Henry's, but he thought of it anyways. He actually showed his brother, and his brother was amazed to see what prototype he built. But one day, his father had drunk home drunk, and some reason, because he drank too much, he was kicked out in a bar called Junior's. Because of that, he didn't felt himself. His father was wondering where his son went. Meanwhile, his grandmother was sitting on the couch and told him to leave old young William alone, but he couldn't do it. He knocked on his bedroom door, only to find out he wasn't there. He found a broken window, and with that broken window, he found out that he escaped and was gonna find him. In his father's drunken state, he mumbled, there it goes, him going to that place again. The place he went to was a graveyard of a dog he used to have. In the graveyard, he used to remember how much fun he had, just like his brother. But ever since that day, he never had a chance to continue on being with him. After that day, William Afton continued on inventing prototypes for different machinery and robots. And one of the machines he did was an endoskeleton that would later be used by, you guessed it, the same endoskeleton as the prototype. But this time, he wanted to make sure it worked. And by working on his skeleton, he had the terrible news. His father had just passed, and he was not happy about that. Both him and his brother had grieved over the passing away of their father. years had passed by the grievance of their father until 1960, when William Afton decided to move to Hurricane, Utah. And in that place, he met someone. He met a woman that will later be his wife, Mrs. Afton. A year later after they known each other, in 1961, they both got married and had a son called Michael Afton. In the rest of the years of the early to mid in the 1967, he met Henry Emily, and the two became best friends. In 1968, however, they planned their idea for their inventions. They called them spring lock suits. In order to use spring lock suits, they had to think of a name of a restaurant. And they had an idea. They decided to name it Fredbear's Family Diner. In 1970, and soon they got to work on it. This lasted till a few years, until 1973, when he finally built the restaurant known as Fredbear's Family Diner. The celebration of money, the new customers coming in, as well as the food, made Fredbear's a big success. Now, this is where I had to explain something about the first point I made. According to what many people think, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza was a decade after Fredbear's, but here's the problem. According to the phone guy, the FNAF 1 animatronics, the main crew of Freddy Fazbear's, were not washed for 20 years. And according to the paycheck, FNAF 1 takes place in 1993. So if you add the math, 1993 minus 20 is 1973. So yeah. So let's just say couple weeks after Freddy Fazbear's Pizza opened, with the main animatronics on the stage, Freddy, Bonnie, and Chica. And so Henry was busy working on a cove called Pirate's Cove to have another animatronic in the Fazbear Band. The name of this animatronic you guys all know as Foxy. Meanwhile, while he was working on Foxy, William M. Afton decided to have a plan for what will now become Circus Baby's Pizza World, but he declined, making him still continue on working on Foxy. Well, that happened. They decided. When that happened, someone called in a phone to work as a security guard for the night shift. William then answered the phone and explained that he wanted to work for a few nights. And this is where the game series comes in. Now, let's think. We have an explanation for William Afton's origins up until this point. Now all we need is to figure out what phone guy's phone calls start. Because one thing that no fear never explains is how long it go with phone guy's messages. Well, here's the thing. It never actually is shown the year. So let's just say it happens right after this point. So let's just say that. So, after a while, survives against the Knights against, 5 nights of surviving against animatronics. Let's just say this takes place during the Fredbear's Family Diner game that's supposed to be planned. So, should that happen, after he survived against 5 nights, he's given a job as a day guard. And this is where I believe phone guy's phone calls actually happen. See, one of the things that phone guy actually says, that there used to be a security guard at work before him, and that he was complaining that the animatronics were getting into his office. This is where we had to start out with the phone guy phone calls. After this night guard that he explained would get into his office. And that after that, he worked the night shift himself. After that, the person who is known as phone guy, decided to work the night shift at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. While he's working with another employee who might be the guy who we see in the FNAF 4 minigames in a Fredbear costume. That's right, if you look closely in FNAF 4's minigames, there's one point a guy in the Fredbear costume will appear. Let's just say he's one of the employees. Let's just give this guy a name. His name would be Peter Marcus. So the Peter Marcus guy, after a phone guy was finished off with his shift, decided that his time during the day will be working as a guy who wears the Fredbear costume, alongside the guard who already worked the night shift. So after that, both men are now in the spring-lock suits, but this is where I believe the spring lock failures happen. the two men were not uncomfortable enough, and so something happened that causes them to their suits to have a spring lock failure. And this is where the news comes in of two men who were caused by spring lock failure. It gets all over the news and it's both William Afton and Henry Henley to make sure it doesn't happen again. Years has passed by the reminder of the spring lock failure, and the phone guy gets a phone call by there being two spring lock failures in the Fredbear's Friendly Diner establishment. This is where the multiple and silence change spring lock failures phone calls would come in. Years have passed until 1977 when another restaurant called Chica's Party World opens, with the mascots of the restaurant being Spring Chica, Jay, Springard, and Lobet, and they are entertained. Once again, the restaurant is successful, and not much tragedy happens at their restaurant yet, until one day someone decided it was hired to work as a security guard to work there. After working for a few nights, they realized that someone was missing, and they couldn't find out why. And then after a while, because of someone being missing in the restaurant, Chica's Party World was shut down. But they discovered that the JJ animatronic was moving at night, and this is where it finds out that the person that was missing was haunting the JJ animatronic. After a while, years go by suspicions of both Fredbear's and Chica's Party World, but not Fazbear's, not yet. In 1980, William Afton finally continues on his plans of continue on during Six Babies Pizza World. And in that time, we found out what happens next. And this is the point where I believe where the mini games actually happen. Now, before we continue, we have to explain a few things. One, this information is added so we found out that the series, again, found out what this series is all about. Again, it's all about mystery. And two, this is where I was pointing out of both of both of these things have been mentioned in the beginning of this video. Anyways, Circus Baby is opened by 1983. As suspected, the main animatronics at this restaurant is Circus Baby, Galore, Funtime Freddy, Bon Bon, Funtime Foxy, Benny Babs, and the main arenas. But this is where I believe the minigames happen. See, people don't understand is that the minigames cannot be the only explanation we have of solving this series. They are the start of where the mysteries go by. Here we see the point of William Afton's daughter, Elizabeth Afton's death happens. See, Elizabeth Afton's death is the reason why Circus Babies is closed down and never opens again. Some people might be wondering, how is this the start of the minigames if the Funtime animatronics were already built, or not seen to be built yet? Well, it's the years that gets this confusing. Remember what I said about if we don't know something about this series, about a theory, and it's actually being debunked when you do research whether or not it's true? Well, the opening of Circus Baby is the reason why. See, due to the confusion on how advanced these Circus Babies animatronics were, they obviously don't believe that they actually originally belong in this point in the timeline. See, this is the point in the timeline where they do point number 2. Only do it to solve the unanswered questions rather than adding enough things to figure out how to fix the unanswered questions. Up until this point in the timeline, they already should have done other things rather than solving answers. And this is where Elizabeth Afton's death comes into play. Elizabeth Afton's death closed Circus Babies down, and William Afton makes a rumor of it being for gas leaks. After that point, the only 2 restaurants that are open up until this point in the timeline is Fredbear's and Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. Well, until another tragedy strikes with William Afton in the FNAF 4 minigames. And this is where the FNAF 4 gameplay actually takes place. See, throughout the FNAF 4 gameplay, we know for a fact that there are minigames. And up until this point, up until about 83, the minigames, people in the Fierce world, they get very confusing of where point in the timeline the minigames happen. The understanding though is that they found out they actually take place during the nightmare sequence. Or should I say, right before the nightmare sequence. They don't understand that it's because they believe the nightmare sequence of FNAF 4 take place after FNAF 1. But then they don't understand that theory is not true. So let's just say the bite of 83 closes down Fredbear's. The bite of 83 closes down Fredbear's, and after a while the tragedy hits. And now William Afton has lost two out of 3 of his children. And he had an idea. And this finally gets us to the point where he becomes a killer. See, right afterwards, in the Fazbear restaurant, it's shown in mini games that he starts with Charlie, then goes to 5 more victims: Susie, Gabriel, Fritz, Jeremy, and Cassidy. They then come control the animatronics, the puppet. See, the mini games actually show that it's the puppet who decides to put the missing children inside the 5 animatronic suits that we know now known as the 5 animatronics from the first game. The puppet puts Gabriel into Fazbear, puts Jeremy into Bonnie and the Bunny, puts Susie into Chica the Chicken, puts Fritz into Foxy the Pirate, and finally puts Cassidy into Golden Freddy. And this somehow happens in 1985. After that, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza is closed down. With nowhere to go and no to be, the brothers of Pierre Marcus, Joe and Alex Marcus, decide to go to a place where you can find old animatronics that were left scrapped or forgotten. And this is where another game of Freddy should be released. And of course, they continue on finding old scraps of animatronics. While they're planning on doing that, 1987, Freddy Fazbear's, the grand reopening of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza gets to happen. You know what happens next. Jeremy Fitzgerald goes to work there for 6 nights, and Mangle gets to break down his frontal lobe, causing the bite of 87. Meanwhile, William Afton kills 5 more kids, and that's how the grand reopening closed down. However, 1 year before Fazbear Entertainment decides to go to another Fazbear Entertainment location, Michael Afton decides to go down to an underground bunker with the Circus Babies Entertainment and Rentals. He goes down there, survives against a few nights, scoops his innards, replaced with Ennard. He barks at Ennard, and he's ruined. He still is alive. A few years after, he gets worked at another Freddy Fazbear's Pizza location in 1993. Gets worked there for a few nights. Gets fired for tampering animatronics and odor. After that, William Afton comes back to the old location and dismantles the old animatronics. The spirits that now control the animatronics be set free, and he hops into the spring bodysuit, gets spring lock, and that's the end of part 1. Part 2 is Fazbear Frights and Beyond. So, part 2 would be set up for Fazbear set up to everything up until the timeline placement of security breach. But right now, wait until a few days until the 14th. I'm Matt the Comic Guy. Bye.